a service of CNC Worldwide.
The CNC Daily Podcast is a service of CNC News, and it's brought to you by the Greece Chamber of Commerce, providing more than 800 member companies with business solutions since 1984. Bands of lake effect snow put more than a foot of accumulation east of Lake Erie and the eastern end of Lake Ontario Tuesday night, mostly but not quite missing the Rochester area. Attica, Warsaw, and Wyoming schools closed Wednesday morning because of the heavy snows southwest of Rochester. The snow belt also covered the thruway from Rochester to points west. A number of accidents took place as the snow moved over Rochester late Tuesday evening rush hour. North Greece and Ridge Road firefighters had to extricate 4 people from a couple of smashed cars after a crash on the 390 expressway between Ridge Road and Vintage Lane. And this crash on Miller Street in Rochester put a car on its side. That's from Monroe County Firewire. A former Greecetown assessor has died in federal prison. The Federal Bureau of Prisons confirms that 66-year-old Charles Schwab died November 26th, the cause not announced. Schwab was one of the 3 people charged in a complex fraud case involving a former Kodak official. They conspired to rig the assessed value of the company's property in the town of Greece, Schwab getting kickbacks in return. He pleaded guilty to mail and wire fraud charges in 2008 and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. The George Eastman House has gone to court in an effort to overturn approval of a 4-story apartment complex directly behind its parking lot. The Eastman House objects to the 99-unit development planned by Morgan Management on the old Monroe Voiture 40 and 8 Club land. The project would face on University Avenue and be 20 feet from the museum's rear property line. Eastman House Director Bruce Barnes says the view from the museum's gardens today is pretty much what George Eastman had during his lifetime. He says this project would irreparably alter it, and the Rochester Planning Commission and Preservation Board were wrong to approve it. The suit is against both the city and Morgan Management, which says it has modified this project to address some neighborhood concerns and believes the approval process was properly handled. The Monroe County Legislature has approved County Executive Maggie Brooks' billion-dollar budget for 2014, minus a controversial pay raise for Sheriff Patrick O'Flynn. Republicans, who have the majority on the legislature, introduced an amendment to hold the sheriff's pay at $136,700 a year. Here's Majority Leader Steve Tucciarello.
Strike out 167, return the number of 136,700.
This headed off the Democrats, who were about to introduce the same measure and who then joined unanimously behind the Republican amendment. Democratic leader Kerry Andrews said there are a number of reasons why a $35,000 a year raise for the sheriff is inappropriate at this time.
The reduction to child care subsidies, the elimination of the Parents as Teachers program, and the fact that 100,000 families in our community live on less than $37,000 a year.
Democrats introduced their own amendment to restore the daycare subsidy funding cuts, but it was defeated on a party line vote before the budget was adopted, also on a party line vote. The county legislature has also reintroduced and approved legislation to regulate second-hand stores and pawn shops in an effort to prevent the sale of stolen goods. The bill was put on hold back in the spring after antique dealers and consignment shop owners said it could put them out of business. Webster legislator Carmen Gamina says exemptions have been put in for businesses that aren't likely to be offered stolen goods.
The current law that we have here before us is a good law, which will be a strong tool for law enforcement in our community.
This was still opposed by a number of shop owners who call it one more burdensome regulation.
This legislation being passed is just another layer of bureaucracy, laws, regulations, rules, hoops that we have to jump through.
The law requires businesses to pay a $150 annual licensing fee, hold used goods for 2 weeks before they go on sale, and keep ID records of their customers to be used in backtracking possible stolen goods. A lengthy report released by the Rochester Area Community Foundation and Act Rochester boils down to a couple of controversial findings. It says Rochester is the 5th poorest city out of the top 75 big cities in America and the 2nd poorest among cities of comparable size. The report also finds Rochester is the poorest school district in upstate New York and the poorest urban school system in the state. The report was compiled from an analysis of the 2010 census. It found the poor, as defined by the federal poverty level, live in every city, town, and village in the 9-county Rochester region. The highest concentrations of the poor are in the city of Rochester, but it turns out the actual majority of poor people, 59%, live outside of the city. Governor Cuomo's Tax Relief Commission submitted its final report, and it starts by calling for a 2-year freeze on property tax increases for all New Yorkers. The panel recommends using a predicted $2 billion state surplus. It says $1 billion of that money should go to a state credit that would reimburse homeowners for any increase in their property tax for the first year. The second year, taxpayers would get the same, but only if their local governments start pushing serious cost-cutting measures, sharing services across boundary lines, or even consolidating political boundaries. The commission then says the state needs to develop a program that targets real property tax relief for the future based on the homeowner's ability to pay. For business owners, the commission says business taxes need to be lower and the laws need to be simplified. They want to cut the corporate income tax rate back to what it was in 1968. The Business Council and many other pro-business groups have given strong endorsement to this commission report. Our CNC news pages like GreaseNYLive.com and Arundecoitlive.com have links to these and a lot of other stories for you to check out, and you can also use them to post news and information directly to us if you want to share anything with us. So the next podcast is when you click on one of our pages and hear it, and the updates are as necessary. I'm Bud Lowell, CNC News.